A comprehensive plan is both a vision for the future and a blueprint for change, especially as it relates to the physical growth of a city's buildings, streets, and infrastructure. That's according to the city of Ithaca, which right now is undergoing the very process of developing a new comprehensive plan. And here to talk about that process are Vice Chair and Chair of the City of Ithaca's Comprehensive Plan Committee, David Kay and Kirby Edmonds. David and Kirby, thank you so much for joining me this evening.
Thank you for having us.
Pleasure to be here.
So just to get us started, I'm wondering if one of you can just kind of lay out for our listeners what a comprehensive plan actually is.
This is David, and I actually think that you summarized it quite well with the idea of a blueprint. It incorporates to some extent a vision of where the city would like to see itself going in the future. It has a small amount of regulatory power in that once you have a comprehensive plan in place, all of the land use and zoning laws of the city need to be in conformance with that. But it doesn't necessarily legally force you to follow through on all the things that are in the plan. The city, I like to think of it as the city having, in a way, made a promise with itself about what it would like to see accomplished.
Mm-hmm. And is it common for cities to have plans like these that kind of guide their decision making?
Yes, it has become increasingly common in the past 50, 60 years in New York State for communities to have comprehensive plans. I believe that all cities in New York State have them. And in fact, the city does have a comprehensive plan already, but it is a little unusual in the length of time that since our comprehensive plan has been comprehensively updated, which isn't to say there haven't been partial updates over the years, but it's been since the 1970s since we took this very comprehensive look at the document that really guides us and the vision that guides us.
Yeah, but between when that comp plan was written back in the 70s and now, I mean, have there just been kind of incremental changes made as needed? Like what's kind of happened over the years that's called for this new comprehensive plan to be necessary?
Well, I would say that there are two overarching things that have happened. One is growing consciousness about the need for planning for climate change, its effects on our infrastructure, what it means both for a local economy and moving forward. And another is just an awareness that it hasn't been done in so long that it's really time to rethink that. And then a growing awareness throughout the community that if we are going to achieve equity in our sort of social structure and in our civic structure, that there has to be some thinking about how to do that. And both equity and sustainability are woven throughout the current draft as it's being put together.
Mm-hmm.
I would just add, I would agree with everything Kirby just said, and I would add that the comprehensive planning process is really a pretty rare opportunity in the governance of the city to look at the big picture and try and look at how various things relate to each other, issues of housing, issues of the labor force, issues of environmental quality and sustainabilities and so forth. What typically happens and has been happening for many years is that we've kind of focused on specific areas and done some planning in those areas, and those have guided us, but we haven't really looked what are the relationships between these areas and how do they trade off, what synergies exist, what things need to be done really together in order to move forward.
The other thing that I would add is that it also creates an opportunity for an attempt to reach some kind of consensus about how the population in the city of Ithaca views the future, what kind of goals make sense to a broad consensus of people, and then to try to frame the plan around that.
Mm-hmm. And that leads me right into my next question. I mean, I understand that the two of you are members of the Comprehensive Plan Committee, but at the end of the day, who really decides what goes into this plan?
At the end of the day, the Common Council decides what goes into the plan. The process is that the committee is gathering broad input, drafting chapters for the plan based on that input, and then we'll draft a plan that goes to the planning board, Ithaca City Planning Board, that will do a series of public hearings and then adopt a plan that then will go to Common Council, that will do a series of public hearings, and then adopt a plan. That will be the final comprehensive plan for the city.
Mm-hmm. And when does the Common Council hope to finish that process?
I'm not going to give you a precise date because we haven't actually heard, our committee has not heard anything from council about specific that I'm aware of about a specific deadline. I would say that we're probably doing, I guess the best way to put it is a more thorough job than might have been originally anticipated in both getting in the input we've gotten so far from the public and then processing that as a committee and turning it into draft chapters, which is the stage we're in right now. We're hoping to go back in terms of process in fall to sort of open up the process again more to the public, to get more input. And I don't know, are you willing to make a guess based on when we'll actually take it to the planning board, which will be the next stage?
Optimistically, I would say if we had a draft to take to the planning board by midwinter in February, that is not out of the question. It's highly ambitious. Because the planning board is engaged in the process as it is, that might not take a huge long time to get from there. I would say would be really lucky to have a plan adopted by Common Council by the end of the spring.
So I think we could look realistically for sometime next year. And by the way, I just want to emphasize that, if everybody thought exactly the same way about this thing, it would be very fast. But the reality is that we have a pretty diverse community and people like and deserve to be participants in the process. And I think we're taking pretty seriously as we know how, the need to get input even before it goes into these very formal sort of traditional public hearing processes. And that's really the major reason that it's taking a while, not we could finish up much more quickly if we just sort of said, there's a deadline we have to meet and we're going to do it and we're going to cut the process short.
Mm-hmm. And maybe we can break that process down a little bit more. You mentioned that the plan has kind of been broken up into chapters, which the community's been able to come and provide their input on. I'm wondering if you can explain for our listeners maybe what some of those chapters are, what kind of areas of city life the plan is even really considering, and maybe touch on what chapters you've received input so far and maybe what that input's been.
I think our draft has, I believe, 8 chapters currently. Some of them are sort of more introductory. 2 of them are more introductory and summary. The more substantive ones in the middle cover topics. I'm not going to go over all of them, but they cover things like transportation, mobility, sustainability, livability of the community, et cetera, et cetera. And I will say that the way we arrived at those thematic headings was based on some pretty open-ended input we had a while ago, and then we took the comments that we'd gotten from the people who came to meetings and who gave us input on their website, on our city website, and essentially organized those around themes, and then had some of our own input to it, of course. So all of them in that sense have had some public input already because they were derived from preliminary public input before there was any text for anybody. So that original input was mostly about what are people's concerns, what are the issue areas that they would like to see addressed in the plan. Kirby,
out of that process, small working groups generated some goals in each of the areas, and then there were focus groups that gave feedback on those goals and ideas about what the challenges would be in implementation, and then the goals were redrafted based on that input. And now we're writing the next draft based on all of that input. It'll go back out to the public, and then we'll see what happens, because when the input starts coming in around that, I think that's the point at which a lot of people who have not been paying attention will start paying attention, and then we will have the writing challenge of dealing with the conflicts that arise out of that.
And I will just add, in terms of thematic areas, and this may be ones, and I think that many of us hope will make this a distinctive plan for the city of Ithaca, is that there are 2 thematic areas which are treated to some extent under bullets, but more importantly, we've made the decision that we want to have them threaded through every chapter, and those two theme areas are equity issues and environmental sustainability issues.
Okay, and if we think about the process and the timeline, and say we get to next spring, and even if that's being optimistic, and the Common Council does finally approve this comprehensive plan, how does the plan work in kind of terms of holding members of city government accountable for things that are laid out in the plan? I mean, does this kind of document have any real teeth?
Well, as I said earlier, I think the legal teeth that are there is once there is something in the comprehensive plan, if it can be, you can be taken to court as a city, if you will, and have decisions reversed if it can be shown that those decisions are very clearly in violation of what's in the comprehensive plan. There's a lot of public process. There was a lot of effort at consensus building and direction setting that will go into whatever this final document is. And in that sense, I think it's really a compact that the city has made with itself, and both the participants in the process and the Common Council, by adopting it, have sort of agreed as the way we want to go. So there aren't going to be that many very, very, very specific things in here. It's more in the nature of goals and things we would like to try and accomplish, rather than very particular mechanisms that we are saying have to be done to accomplish it at this stage of the process. Those are much easier, I think, to say we're going to try and achieve those, even if we don't know exactly what the right steps are to take.
The next step after adopting a comprehensive plan is phase 2, where in particular areas of the city, stakeholders in those areas start planning for that area with the comprehensive plan as a blueprint, and think about, can we implement any of this here? What does this mean for doing something on West Hill or in the Southwest or in Collegetown, although Collegetown has already completed its plan?
So I would just add to what Kirby just said, that areas, as he was talking about it, will be interpreted in part as geographic parts of the city. It could also be interpreted as issue areas. For example, like maybe there's a special effort that needs to be done around affordable housing, or maybe there's a special effort that needs to be done about responding to the challenges of climate change that would require, the attention of both the citizens and the planning, the professional planners and the Common Council. And all of that will be under phase 2. So the reverse of that, which is very important to understand, is what we're trying to focus on in this phase 1 of the planning process is really issues that are of citywide concern. And so we're not getting down to the neighborhood level at this phase. We're hearing things about neighborhoods, but we're trying to interpret them in the context of how can we think about this, about something that's important to the city as a whole.
Of course, and this is a conversation I'm sure that could go on much longer than we've been talking here today, but we are running out of time. I did want to mention that meetings about the plan have been happening, public meetings have been happening all month. I wanted to see when the next chance for members of the public to come and provide their input would be.
We do have basically monthly public meetings, and I would say that unfortunately members of the public don't normally show up to our regular meetings. I'm hoping Kirby's looking up what the next meeting
July
is.
21st, right. 4:30 to 6:30.
And where at?
Usually it's in Common Council chambers.
Okay.
But so these are, if you will, that meeting, and the other ones are, if you will, working meetings of the committee, and the public is invited to come, and if there aren't very many people there, we're somewhat informal. Sometimes if there are more people, we have to be a little more formal about the work we're doing. These are different than the special meetings that we hold, where we do a lot of outreach to try and encourage members of the public to come in various meetings. And we're really starting to plan a whole new series of those more widely publicized meetings for the fall.
Okay, well, if the comprehensive plan is something you would like to provide your input on, watch out for those more public meetings coming in the fall. And I have been speaking with Kirby Edmonds and David Kay. They are the chair and vice chair, respectively, of the City of Ithaca's Comprehensive Plan Committee. Kirby, David, thank you so much for joining me this evening.
Thank you, and there's more information on the city's website.